about the need to end the giving of secret millions of dollars in political contributions from groups, people, unions getting billions in government contracts. This is a very specific thing we want to talk about, and we've had great support around the country. We've had over 3,000 conservatives call and ask for an executive order on this issue. And just talking to people here, I think we've got all of the SEC states covered for as far as the primary coming up. Talking to people, we have people here from Maryland, North Carolina, Alabama, Georgia, Virginia. Did I miss any states? Florida, thank you. Okay, you get the award for the furthest travel. So the South Carolina people claim they have some vote coming up in a few days and just could not break free. But we've got great support out of there too. But why are we focused on this issue? Take Back Our Republic formed just over a year ago. I announced it just down the block at Grover Norquist Wednesday morning meeting conservative groups. And we promised that we were going to talk about conservative solutions for campaign finance reform. Now we understand there's ideological free speech we talk about with political giving, and we understand that. We want to focus in on transactional giving, the practice of giving money to get something back from the government, to get taxpayer money back. More of a spreadsheet transaction in political giving than ideologically, I'm giving because I'm conservative, I'm progressive, whatever. And so we need to look at anything that looks like a business transaction. I started to hone in on this issue during my last few years of running political campaigns. And people were coming up to me in Dave Bratt's race against Eric Cantor and saying, oh, you work in campaigns. Isn't the deal there that people give politicians $1 million, they get hundreds of millions back in my tax money? These are just average people talking, just getting a sense. At which point I started to say, you know, I think we've got something here. I think people are a little upset. So this issue ties perfectly into the message of where we've gone over the last year. And as a conservative, a couple of people had a little stumbling block over asking for an executive order. Certainly conservatives complained about some executive order. I think the important thing here is, to some degree, we're throwing in a towel a little bit and saying, this is just how this president governs. This is how he does it, and so we're going to have to ask him in this case to use one. But also, this executive order, a disclosure issue like this, is much more in keeping with the way executive orders have been used in the past. So even a lot of our conservatives who disagreed with executive orders on guns or immigration or other issues say, look, this is a simple one. Give us some transparency. And certainly this president does not have reservations about signing executive orders. So let's go ahead and get this one. We don't really understand why this one's apparently been sitting there. So I think that, you know, revealing donors is a perfect use of this. And certainly would be maybe one of the best of the 200 he had signed. Now, back to what Take Back Our Republic laid out when we started just over a year ago, 2 blocks from here in our first announcement. We promised conservative solutions. It's true this is not the only conservative solution. We've talked about tax credits to empower small donors. We've talked, Chuck Cunningham here, who was a longtime lobbyist for the NRA, has worked on a bill to stop unverified credit card contributions from flooding in. We don't know where they're coming from. Congressman Jolly has proposed a bill which I think caught everyone's attention a few weeks ago in Florida, some of our Florida people, just saying members of Congress can't ask for money. So I don't think that'll be well received on some, but it pointed out to people that congressmen are spending most of their time raising money. So all these are great solutions, but they all take time. And we realize, you know, working something through Congress or some of these other steps or some of the state referenda we're going to work on, hopefully in Arkansas and Idaho, are important. This is something to be done today. Literally right now, this practice could end and contractors could have to reveal their political giving. So there was one editorial that wrote recently that it seemed like the only 2 people out there against this were the Chamber of Commerce and the President. Well, we just need the President to go ahead and act on it. That gets it done. With that, I just want to introduce a longtime friend from years back, Jim Gilmore, and just a couple of words on Jim. I think he has a unique perspective on why disclosure is important, and someone perhaps running money through areas is important, because prior to his elected office, he was an Army intelligence officer. Certainly, we want to make sure the awarding of military contracts or any other contracts is not tainted by just who has the biggest checkbook for political contributions, or whether who can get the job done. So I think there's a unique perspective both there and as a governor. Well, I will say, anyone who looks back on his history knows Jim Gilmore did not give in to the big check writers who were asking him to do things. There are many cases of him standing up to them. So we appreciate we have the opportunity. Sorry, the campaign being suspended gave us a chance to have him, invite him to come and speak. And with that, I want to turn things over to Governor Gilmore. Thank you for being here, Gilmore.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank all of you all for being here. Appreciate the opportunity to speak and say a few words. Well, when John first talked to me about this organization, about taking our republic back, he told me, you stick with us and you come cooperate with us and I'll get you to the White House. Well, I didn't know exactly this was what he meant.
Legal disclaimer, we never said that. We're a nonprofit, we can't do that.
So, listen, I'm glad to have a chance to be here because, as you probably saw in the political campaign that I'm now suspended, I began to introduce some ideas into the campaign, particularly in the debate in Des Moines when I was out there. And I began to realize as the campaign went on that we had a real problem with the way that America is running today. And this organization is trying to confront a piece of that right now, and I think it will expand. What you're seeing right now in the campaign for president, the expression of a great deal of frustration, really angry. And it's coming out right now in the race, it's coming out right now in every primary that we're seeing across the country. Primarily the American people are fed up, angry, and frustrated with the way things are going. And it's because right now, big money and big power is really controlling most of American life. It's controlling the ability to have your economic life and your job, and how money is manipulated from around the government. It's controlling the way that we're seeing campaign contributions come in and the political situation that we're in. And whether you get on a ballot or you don't, but whether you're recognized nationally or not, depending upon big money, big money, big money, all the time. And I understand that you have to have big money in order to put together the organizations necessary to run a political campaign. I understand that, and so does John. But the problem we've got right now is that it's uncontrolled and it's secretive. And then, of course, there's the question of the mass media. The reality that I began to talk about is that the mass media are actually giving money to selected candidates. And that's by way of exposure, by way of promoting people on their television shows. We've changed as a society. It's no longer a day where they're reporting just the news. They're now actually promoting candidates. Tonight on MSNBC, you're going to see Morning Joe's people out there at 8 o'clock tonight promoting a Donald Trump rally. And it's going to be, they're going to interview him, they're going to promote him, they're going to talk about him. That is not the news. That is a political campaign contribution that is unreported and unremarked in this campaign. And there are other examples of it. I'll give you another example, the Tyndall organization that right now that tries to measure how many people get on television all the time. In 2015, the standard networks had about 850 minutes or so that they were covering presidential campaigns. Donald Trump got 250 of them about. That was more minutes than the entire Democratic field of candidates for the 2015. Ted Cruz got 7 minutes. So the difference is that, as Trump said several weeks ago, he doesn't have to spend any money for broadcasting because it's all being given to him. Now, this goes back to the issue of John was talking about money and transparency. And I believe that we ought to be transparent in all ways, both in terms of the donations made by mass media through their coverage, and also through this issue of real cash going from one organization to the other in order to fund candidacies out there secretively and quietly. And that is what John is focused on and his organization is focused on, and why I'm here today. So I think there are some answers to this. I think transparency is the answer. Let the people know so that the people can decide. Let the people know who's contributing money, whether it's being done secretively or it's being straight up. We need to know this. We have a situation right now where there are super PACs that can take unlimited amounts of money. Sure, that's being reported, but a lot of it right now is being very secretive and being very disguised. I think John's position is that the public ought to know how much money is being given to what candidates in what way. And I say that that also extends to the mass media, which is donating real time, which is the same thing as real money, to political candidates of their choice. And that, of course, creates a really diluted and completely polluted political environment and situation, which is what we're in right now, which is why the people of the United States are so angry. So I support John in his position that we ought to have transparency and complete reporting and a complete knowledge to the American people of where money is going and what it's doing. And that includes the mass media. The mass media that are donating free airtime to their selected candidates, which is quantifiable. I believe that we ought to have this Tyndall organization looking not just at the standard media, ABC, NBC, CBS, but all the stations where people are getting their information right now. CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and everybody, so that we can really look and see where real value in kind is going into the political campaign. So this is why I'm here and why I'm a part of this today, and why I'm proud to be with you, John, and your organization, and standing with you. And I'm happy to have a chance to spend some time with you today. Thank you very much for your leadership.
Appreciate it, Governor. Thank you. Happy to take any questions, either group or after one-on-one, so feel free to fire away. Well, make him look more transactional. I think you're revealing, and you let the voter decide. I think if you are disclosing, you can make the case that we as a company are doing this government contract job better than anyone else. But I think the voter should always have that knowledge when they vote. And if it starts to look like friends of a given president or other higher ups, no matter which party they're from, seem to be getting deals, we want attention on that. And I think Republicans, for example, jumped on Solandro when that venture went under after a bunch of money went in. Certainly there were other cases where Democrats jumped on things during the Bush administration, as long as it's revealed. But I just don't see the validity in their argument on saying, well, gee, it's hard to do. It might make it look transactional. People know what we're giving and what we're getting in return. Well, yeah, I guess for me, for them to be saying, so it's better if it's all secret. We're giving money's coming back and no one knows. I mean, we've just got to shine a light on it. And voters are reasonable. I think if they think a company's doing a good job providing a good service, I don't think that's going to be a big issue. But if it looks like some other company was better situated and maybe didn't have the deep pockets, I think they should know that too. Any other questions as a group?
I got one.
Yep, sure.
Huge majorities of Republican voters are for the kind of agenda you're laying out right now. What do you think it'll take for people in this city to get that message?
Well, one thing I said when we launched is that I was not going to come to Capitol Hill until 6 months after we started our organization. And the reason was I wanted to start state chapters first. This has to be grassroots. It has to flow from the states. And I think what I see out there, having run campaigns for years, and I go back to Bush 2000, where I was coordinating 16 states coalition effort, in some vendor capacity. I'm telling you, people out there are fed up. But what we did is when we came here after 6 months, the members had already been hearing from people in their district that this group Take Back Our Republic was starting a local chapter and all. And that's what gets their attention. I think everyone wants to jump on the members, and obviously their popularity is very low. I think they're a victim in this too. I mean, as a member, you can spend your time doing one of three basic things: solving some very tough problems the country's facing, talking to your constituents, or raising money. And the problem is, of course, if they're spending 3/4 of their time raising money, there's very little for the other two. So I think they really welcome some of the things we're doing. I think everyone's just caught up in this system, and it's like someone said once, well, shop owners like the mafia because they keep them safe. Well, yeah, but they're taking all their money. So I don't think anyone likes, any member gets here and says, gee, I really want to be a professional fundraiser elected to Congress so I can do it. So that gets into a broad issue. But again, all those things will take time. I think they'll bubble up. But your point on it taking time is another reason this executive order should be front and center. This is one thing we can solve today. I mean, he can do it this afternoon as soon as he wants to. So this is one we move on quickly. But I agree. It's going to take a little time, but I think we're getting there.
Sort of a follow-up question. Nationwide, Republicans, Democrats, Independents alike support full transparency of money in politics. The only place where it's partisan is in the Capitol. Are you making any inroads trying to break down that partisanship on this issue?
Sure, we are, and let me say it's a two-way street, though. The issue HR 4177 we have in, which would require verification of credit card contributions, that was a good icebreaker, if you will. A couple dozen Republicans have signed that. Partly Chuck Cunningham's done a great job of talking to them and old friends. That was a way to say, hey, look, there's another way money could be sneaking in, and that's through just billions of dollars in small, unverified contributions. And so I think it's significant that a couple dozen Republicans signed that bill pretty quickly, because maybe the first time they've signed a campaign finance piece of legislation, and maybe it was a different angle of the problem than they were used to hearing. But I think if that gets them over the hurdle of, yes, we do need to make sure we have valid money coming in, accountable money, that seemed to open the conversation on a whole bunch of other issues. So I think so, and I think a lot of the newer members are very open to this issue and open to several related ones. So yeah, I think we're making headway. Sure.
John, what would you say to presidential candidates like Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, who are out there talking about secret money being a bad thing, but actually vote against disclosure reform in Congress?
Sure. Well, lawyer's not here, but we always have to be careful being a nonprofit because we don't endorse to be careful. But yeah, and I'll take, for example, look at how the polls move in favor of someone who does really talk about campaign finance. I mean, did anyone think Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump would be, potential nominees at this point? And I think if you look at it, when Trump said, you give politicians money, they do whatever the heck you want, he shot up and stayed up, just acknowledging it. Now, I would argue that he offered no solutions other than a billionaire cannot be bought, so elect me. I don't like the solution of only billionaires can run because they can't be bought. But at least he raised the issue. So what I'd say to all these candidates is, look, when someone talks about this, I mean, Bernie led with campaign finance and shot up, suddenly got very competitive. All the candidates, I think, have started to say some good things, but yeah, we do need the follow through. So we need to actually put, okay, so what are the 4 steps? Almost all have talked about problems with Super PAC. I mean, I think last week was the first time that Governor Bush said basically Citizens United should be overturned. I mean, I think these are all breakthroughs, and politicians read what's moving voters. And I think the more they see the positive reaction voters in both parties have to these kind of measures, the more supportive they'd be. So I'd love to see them come out in favor of this executive order, even though it would just be symbolic. But certainly some of these other disclosure issues, they could too.
Any other?
Thank you for picking a warm day.
We are sorry. This was scheduled Monday, as you know, and we saw that weather report. And I know we had some people who couldn't come because of it not being a holiday. They come in, but we appreciate those who still made the long trek. But no, it's certainly relatively warm. Although I was in Los Angeles yesterday, and it was 86 degrees. So I've gone to New Hampshire, and 0 degrees, just about to 86 to here. So this is right in the middle. Thank you all for taking the time, and we'll still be around if anyone has one-on-one questions.
Thank you, John.
Yep.